Good day to you. Today the Lord's vision and word comes from Revelation 22. Then he showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the middle of it, on either side of the river, was the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. So the vision was this, that the Lord is calling us in this COVID times, difficulties, to an operating theatre and operating table. And this operation is, we keep our head on the footstool of God, and His throne is there. We keep our head on the footstool, and the river flowing, the stream flowing from His throne enters our head and goes through our body. And when the stream enters our head, He clarifies our thoughts, our ambitions, our eyesight, our hearing, our seeing, our tastes. All those change to divine nature, to divine affections. And His river begins to flow through our head, and it enters our lungs, and we begin to breathe clean. We breathe in the Holy Spirit, we breathe out the Holy Spirit, and the river enters our abdomen. Every organ is flushed out, our sexual desires are flushed out, cleansed, and every organ is secured with no disease, no cancer. The river is flowing through. And then as a man, as a work in progress, a man on an operating theatre or an operation being done, that's how we walk the streets. And as we walk to wherever God has assigned us, and the river of God begins to flow through our feet, the stream of God. How does it flow through our feet? It's now cleansed us on the inside, and our insides are agreeing, and His nature outflow through our feet into our mission, into our commission, into our office, into our home, of course. Wherever we go, a clean flow of the life of God, of the love of God, our fountainhead is Jesus Christ, is able to now move through. That's the calling, that's our mission. But if we are not attending on this, not agreeing, old natures still come up, and our fountains are still muddled inside us, and we are not obeying or agreeing with the river of God that's doing its utmost, the life of Christ, to enter into all our being, all our thoughts, all our passions. If we are not agreeing, the river gets blocked in us. So heaven has this operational process, the Lord's river to flow through us, and when we walk these days, we walk with this dignity, certainly with this heavenly weight of His desires in our life, and what He's doing in us, operation in progress, work in progress. We are walking with the inward cleansing, the river flowing into us. That's our being, and that's our affections, all being divinely adjusted, sanctified, clarified, coordinated. We are agreeing to this. Then, when the river flows out, there's life of Christ. If we are not agreeing to it, still conflict in these difficult times, God has no other way but to use His kingdom citizens for the flow of God. They behold His face, we are told. There will no longer be any curse. Throne of God and the Lamb will be in it, and His bondservants will serve Him. And we begin that life right here. We know this is eternity, but we begin eternity here. This is the manner of our service. This is our throne. And if we don't allow this throne to function through us, the throne of iniquity will overcome nations. That's the problem. When the throne of iniquity overcomes nations, it is because the throne of God could not flow through His people. Every nation's story of the decade, story of the generation was that. Did the throne of heaven, could it flow through His people into the streets, highways and byways? Or did the throne of iniquity prevail because God's people were not willing, negligent, not available, whatever the reason? They had other occupation, they were entertained otherwise, they were distracted otherwise. Then they are not having God's river flowing through them. They have other interests, other passions, other ambitions, other priorities. And nations went under the throne of iniquity. Excuse me. So we know in Revelation 12, we are told in verse 13, the old dragon will spew out a torrent of flood of sin and poison and deception and offense and every horrible thing out of his mouth. But then there is a throne. There is a throne from which the river of God is flowing. And we are the conduit. We are the channel. We are connected to the throne up there. And the throne is spewing out the water of life from us. And everywhere we go, from our feet, the water goes out. And then, of course, we know marshlands, work fields will be healed, and life will be flowing out. Shall we take up this challenge? If we do not, throne of iniquity will prevail in our work fields, in our lands and in our cities, because